It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Kyle Benedict as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now here's today's Countywide.
Today we're going to get kind of a wrap-up of the Coconino National Forest for 2015. Vic Morfin, our guest today. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Do you remember the last time you were here?
You bet.
When was it?
It was about 3 months ago.
3 months ago.
A while.
March 24th. You and Brady Smith came in and sat down because we had had a really dry February and March. It had been warm. Conditions were dry, and they were talking, okay, when do we start running the PSAs for wildfire season? I said, fire them up right now because it is so hot. And then all of a sudden, you came in and mentioned that you were predicting, or the weather was predicting, shots of rain every other week or so.
Right.
And it would probably be a pretty decent spring, but you never know.
Right. Our predictive services predicted what actually happened, that every week or so we would get these pulses of moisture, and it would come in and kind of moderate the fire season for us. Mm-hmm. And we were a little skeptical because, as you know, May, June for us is usually hot, dry.
That's the worst time.
Right, right. But they hit it dead on this year. We did get those pulses and managed to mitigate the fire season and at the same time give us an opportunity to manage a lot of fires for resource objectives. Mm-hmm. Allow those fires to burn within certain prescription criteria, and it worked out really well for us.
Yeah, it was really good. I mean, it's been an amazing spring and summer, that's for sure. Definitely different. Before we get into that, you have been up in Washington?
Yes.
Fighting fires. So give us kind of a feeling what's going on up there.
Yeah, I was up around Colville, Washington, kind of Spokane, up close to Canada. And while I was there, we pretty much got inundated with lightning, dry lightning, no moisture with it. And so the number of fires and the acreage of fires was well above norm. And we really struggled just because we didn't have the resources to deal with those fires. Mm-hmm. It was just a little bit too much at one time. They've taken some pretty proactive steps to get ahead of that. We brought in help from Canada. We brought in help from Australia. We've employed the military.
Oh, wow.
We use the military aircraft quite a bit, but generally speaking, bringing in the troops is more rare. But this year we brought in some troops to help us out, and so I think we still have unstaffed fires even now, but we're a lot better off than we were about 3 weeks ago.
That's kind of unheard of, isn't it, to have unstaffed fires going on?
Yeah, it is. It is. Generally speaking, we can staff fires fairly quickly, mm-hmm. But we just didn't and don't have the people power to keep up with as much lightning as we had. And
that's amazing. So all lightning strikes pretty much, not human caused,
right.
But just dry lightning coming down.
It was huge storms that came through and hit a lot of states simultaneously and just lit up that northwest portion of the U.S.
Associated Press had put a story out, I don't know, a week or two ago, was talking about how there were so few firefighters available to fight fires that they actually had citizens coming up and standing shoulder to shoulder with you guys, helping on the lines of those fires.
You bet. I worked with some around Fruitland up in Washington, and we were employing mainly heavy equipment, dozers, tractors, that sort of thing, mm-hmm. helping us out. So a lot of help. We had a lot of help that way, but it is a challenge to manage that too, as
sure.
You can imagine.
Yeah. I mean, we're not all trained for this, and then, hey, we need your backhoe. Okay, right. And so people just come out of the woodwork and help out, huh?
You bet. A lot of people were very willing and able to help. It was really refreshing to see, mm-hmm. And we did get a lot of help that way, and did a lot of structure protection, as you can imagine.
How long were you up there for?
A couple weeks. A 14-day tour.
Is that the usual kind of thing?
That's pretty standard.
Yeah.
You can extend to a 21-day tour, or you can do 2 weeks and rest in place for a couple days and do another 2 weeks.
Okay. Will you be going back?
I will.
Okay.
If I'm ordered, and I would think that's going to happen here in the next week.
I would imagine so. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're here while you're here, because Don Muse was going to come in, but I guess he was up there too, and he was having to drive back. So you've been back a little while, so I'm glad you guys could come in, because I thought it would really be important to, we had you in, like I said, in March, talking about how conditions were bad and preparing for wildfire season. And now wildfire season, I guess, we never really end a wildfire season in Arizona, do we?
It doesn't seem.
There's always a chance. It doesn't seem.
Yeah, not anymore.
Yeah. So this summer no fire restrictions in the Coconino National Forest, right. No fire restrictions on Prescott National Forest. I don't think did any national forest. Tonto did for a little while.
The
Tonto Forest did for a little bit of time. But it's unusual to have our forests in the area go without fire restrictions.
Right.
But again, we go back to that weather that hit in April and May, and then oddly enough continued through June. June is usually the hottest month, isn't it? The driest?
Usually no moisture in June.
Right. And it was very wet this June.
Right.
And you're driving down the road now, and the grasses are 3-4 feet high. They're amazingly high.
Right.
But you have, throughout the summer months, instead of responding to, I guess they are wildfires, but I guess when I hear the word management put on the end of these wildfires, like you guys did so much this summer, that I don't consider it a wildfire anymore. It's almost like a prescribed burn.
Yeah, what we often term as wildfires managed for resource objectives are, as you said, they're wildfires. However, the approach that we take with them is different than what we used to consider a traditional wildfire. We're not just trying to put them out or just protect houses. We're trying to keep them within a confinement area, but then we're trying to allow the fire to perform its natural role and to do good things on the landscape. And when you get conditions like we had this summer, it's great for that because you had just enough moisture to where the fuels would burn up, you could kill the brush and do all that stuff, but it wasn't likely to run out of control.
It's the first year this year that I can think of where a lot of our stories would talk about these management fires you guys were doing, and either Brady was sending us stuff or Jackie Banks or Debbie Maneely, and they say, okay, things are going to die down a little bit because we got moisture coming in, higher humidities over the next few days, so there's going to be a lot less smoke. But then after this is over, the monsoon snap that's coming through is over, of course, you'll get to see more smoke again.
Right.
Yeah, so you guys, we get those little breaks.
Yeah, you take what the weather gives you, and as the weather and the fuels change and dry out and get to where you want it to be, you would tend to ramp up. The fires would tend to start growing again and produce more smoke, of course. But yeah, you just basically go with it, give what it'll give you, and take advantage of the situation.
How many wildfires did we have?
We had about 285, which is actually below normal. We average about 400 a year.
Oh, wow, that's
Coconino.
quite a bit below normal. Oh, this is the Coconino alone that we're talking about.
We're just talking the Coconino National Forest. And so the average number of fires was down quite a bit. However, the lightning strikes were about average. The abandoned campfires that don't count in that mix, we had a good 422 of those alone.
That's pretty
So
scary.
we don't count those in our totals. We call those non-stat fires, non-statistical. But it's alarming that so many fires are being abandoned this year.
Any ideas why?
You know, we're thinking that possibly it's because of the weather. When people are looking outside and it's a little greener, it rained a few days ago, that maybe they're not as vigilant as they would be in a typical summer when things are dry and large fires are burning type of deal. I don't know for sure, but we're thinking that maybe that has something to do with it.
Should we be that lax about it there, Vic?
Oh, no, not at all. Of course, as you know, there's a lot of potential, and it only takes one fire to get out of the ring. When the wind's blowing and burn up houses, do a lot of bad things.
Well, I've been talking with Brady and Debbie Maneely each Monday. I'll send them a quick email, say how many abandoned campfires you have on the weekend. So we talk about that on Monday into Tuesday. And then Friday we do our, put your campfire out. And it didn't matter if it was raining or not throughout the week, but that's what we do. We'd say, okay, this last weekend, Coconino National Forest had this many abandoned campfires, Prescott National Forest had this many. Put your campfire out, and for Pete's sake, take your trash with you because you don't have trash service out there in the forest. And it seemed like the numbers were dropping slowly but surely throughout the summer months. But then again, Brady Smith was telling me that there were more folks from the Coconino National Forest were actually being dispatched out of the area, so the numbers could still be high in terms of abandoned campfires.
Right. If we don't have as many people out in the woods patrolling and checking, then they may be out there and we're just not seeing them. 400
and some odd abandoned campfires. Is that normal for you guys?
Not at all.
Is that low or high?
It's like double the average.
Oh.
422. And I'm just talking about since January. So year to date. And so no, that's way too high.
Yeah. Twice as many as you normally would have.
Right.
Okay. All right. We have to take our first break, okay?
Okay.
Vic Morfin in studio today. He's the Forest Fuels Management Officer for the Coconino National Forest. I'm Paul David. This is Countywide. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
When I was 6, my days were spent playing basketball. When I was 6, my dream was to make it to the NBA. When I was 6, my mom had a stroke.
I'm Paul George, and I want you to spot a stroke fast.
F, face drooping. A, Arm weakness. S. Speech difficulty. T. Time to call 911. Protect the ones you love. Spot a stroke fast.
You taught him how to hit a baseball. How to hit a receiver. The strike zone. The net. You taught him how to hit the upper corner. You even taught him how to hit the open man. But how much time have you spent teaching him what not to hit?
Millions of people are affected by disaster in America. And we're right there, providing food. With more than 200 food banks, reaching communities all across America. Donate now for immediate relief and long-term recovery. Every dollar helps provide food for disaster victims. Help now at feedingamerica.org.
They'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
Welcome back to Countywide. I'm Paul David. Vic Morphin from the Coconino National Forest in studio today, getting kind of a wrap-up of, I guess, the 2015 season so far anyways. Well, if things happen, of course, we'll keep following along. But so we've had a lot of wildfires this year. Twice as many abandoned campfires as we normally would see so far this year, because that, January through now, there's still time this year. Forest health. Can we talk a little bit about forest health? Because it is looking pretty amazing out there. I've never quite seen it this way before.
It is. The limiting factor here in the Southwest for plants is water. And as you know, this year we've been getting a lot of water. And so if you look around, everything's really green. Grass is really tall.
A lot of flowers.
Right. It looks like the forest is doing really well.
Is it?
And appreciates the moisture. I think generally it is. There's some red flags with that, of course. As we get more moisture and the grass gets taller, that's fuel for next year's season. And then we still have way too many trees out there. So it's nice to get that extra water, but when you have 10 times the trees that maybe you should have, they're still stressed. Just a lot of competition going on.
Well, I want to backtrack just a little bit. Those management fires we had this year, we were talking before the show, and I wanted to kind of bring this up, but you guys have been really working hard on protecting watersheds, archaeological sites, towns, communities, things like that. These fires seem to pop up in really great areas to kind of create that defensible space for not just like we try to do with our own homes, but we're talking whole communities.
Yeah.
You've had a few really good ones this year.
We've had some great ones. We average about 400 fires a year, about 200 lightning strikes a year. So the more lightning strikes you have, the better opportunity there is to get one in the right location. But we've had a couple in key locations that were really helpful. One being right in Fossil Creek, right at the top of Fossil Creek off 87 and 260. That fire was ideal because we're always concerned about a fire coming out of Fossil Creek. Then we had another one at the top, kind of by the slide fire, just east of the slide fire.
Remember that?
And it's nice when you get those fires under the right conditions, you can actually manage them and try to protect from future fires.
It did tie in with the slide fire area that was charred, correct?
Yeah, it didn't quite touch, but yes, it was one of those areas. If the slide fire had moved in a way we didn't want it to move, it would have burned right into this area that we were able to treat.
Gotcha.
So,
and then you were out by Mormon Lake.
Yep, the Bar M fire.
So there's the Mormon Lake area is really nice, and I think you had one near, I want to say Munns Park too.
You know that I can't recall that one, but we probably did. We had about 6 for the tune of 35,000 acres.
Wow. Okay.
And some of which I was off on fires.
Right.
We tend to travel around. And,
right.
Yep.
Okay. So, now let's go back to forest health, because that's really great news to be able to Because those burns, usually you would have to wait for just the right conditions and then set the fires, and it's a different approach. But here, Mother Nature came in, zap, there you go, there it is.
Right.
Deal with it, Vic. Right?
Right.
Sort of thing. So forest health. Okay, so when you drive around, you're looking at the grasses and the plants and the flowers and everything that's been growing. I mean, they're all 3-4 feet high, it seems like, all along the roads. And you said red flags. You mentioned red flags. So let's jump back into that. Okay. So these things growing this year are next year's fuels.
Right. Right. One way to look at it is that when you get that 3-foot grass, that's great to have that good grass crop. Cows like it, elk like it. However, that grass will die as it dries out and will become next year's fuels. So although it's good to get the moisture and the tall grass and whatnot, the downside is that often that next fire season is when it'll show up.
Yeah, we've seen that in the past.
In terms of fuel, mm-hmm. Yeah, you bet.
So what do we need to happen to keep us from seeing that next year? Because we're expecting a strong El Nino, and we'll be talking with the National Weather Service later this month about that. But we've got a strong El Nino supposedly coming in this winter. Right. So that means it's right now it's showing temperatures, no real change there, but definitely wetter than normal. So snow and rain,
right.
Lots of it.
Sure.
What will that do if it happens?
Hopefully we'll get that heavy snowpack. As you know, we haven't had a good snowpack for a while. Mm-hmm. But generally, as you get those heavy snowpacks in those wet years, it will mitigate the fire season, as it did this year. So that's what we're always hopeful for, is a good, strong snowpack to keep those fuels at bay for a while, because snow takes a lot longer to melt than, say, rain. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're hopeful for, is that good hard snowpack. And then the other way to look at it is that we live in a fire environment. We're going to have those fires. 150, 200 strikes a year, you're going to have fires. It's really, can we get ahead of it? Are we doing our thinning? Are we doing our prescribed fires, our wildfires for resource objectives? Because the better position we put ourselves in by treating the landscape ahead of time, then it's not so important how much moisture we get, or if someone abandoned their campfire at the wrong time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
And then I've heard also that heavy snowpack takes those 3-4 foot tall grasses and smashes them flat to the ground?
You bet. It changes that fuel continuity and the arrangement of the fuels.
Okay.
And so obviously, as those fuels get pushed down and are more compact, that's generally better than upright and flashy. The grass, when it's upright, burns more like brush.
Okay.
Really active, high rate of spread, really intense. As you lay that stuff down, it will tend to not spread nearly as fast and not be as resistance to control is lower, is what we call it.
And then we were also talking during the break too that if the last few years now we've noticed this too, is in January and February, instead of getting snowstorms, we get these tropical systems that come up, and then it's not so cold. It's this rain going on.
Right.
So that could be a problem.
Certainly. We want to see snow in the winter. Mm-hmm. In those months when you typically get snow, we'd like to see snow, not rain. Two things. One, snow lasts longer. That snowpack has a lasting effect. But two, as you know, that rain will come in and melt the snow, so it makes it even worse. To get rain on top of snow.
And you've mentioned that snowpack is also what those big down logs and trees, those are the ones, it's the snow that really helps those guys out.
You bet. That keeps their moisture up.
Right.
Where rain doesn't have much impact on the big heavies.
Right. Yeah, that doesn't get a chance to soak in very well.
Right.
Yeah, I pay attention.
You do.
Vic Morfin in studio today with the Coconino National Forest. I'm Paul David. This is Countywide. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
When I was 6, my days were spent playing basketball. When I was 6, my dream was to make it to the NBA. When I was 6, my mom had a stroke.
I'm Paul George, and I want you to spot a stroke fast.
F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911.
Protect the ones you love.
Spot a stroke fast.
You taught him how to hit a baseball, how to hit a receiver, the strike zone, the net. You taught him how to hit the upper corner. You even taught him how to hit the open man. But how much time have you spent teaching him what not to hit?
Millions of people are affected by disaster in America. And we're right there, providing food. With more than 200 food banks, reaching communities all across America. Donate now for immediate relief and long-term recovery. Every dollar helps provide food for disaster victims. Help now at feedingamerica.org.
They'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
Welcome back to Countywide. Coconino National Forest Fuels Management Officer Vic Morfin in studio today. Fire season is, I don't even want to say fire season's over because that is just a dangerous thing to do.
Right.
And I've had folks like you come in here and say, well, we're always in wildfire season. It never disappears. So I don't want to say something like that. But in terms of, I almost feel like I have to say it, our threat of major wildfires is kind of reduced. Am I right to say that?
Up on the rim where I'm up on the Coconino National Forest, it's definitely moderated.
Okay.
And the threat of problem fires is being mitigated. It's wet.
Okay.
However, down here in the Verde Valley, as you know, just a few days ago, you had a 250, 300 acre wildfire.
Right over there in Prescott Valley.
You bet. So down here, not so much. You still have that potential.
Right. So it's still, in some parts of the state, it is still happening. Yeah. Let's move on to what we wanted to kind of finish the show up with. Although it's been beautiful to be able to see this blue horizon all summer long. It's looked really nice out there. We have had some smoke impacts from time to time from some of the management fires, but there will still be some burning going on throughout the fall.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
The fall tends to be the heart of our prescribed fire season on the Coconino and the ponderosa pine. And so, yeah, we would anticipate in the next 3 to 6 weeks, ballpark, depending on the weather, that we would be getting back into prescribed fire season and lighting up fires throughout the Coconino, and our neighbors would probably be doing the same if the weather cooperates.
Okay. Now, you had this weather prediction when you were here last time, back in March 24th when you were here, that we're going to have these periodical rains. Are you keeping in touch as to what your kind of forecast is looking like for the fall and winter? You
bet. And our predictive services lately has been saying, as you described, the El Nino signature is pretty strong, and that's what they think is coming. And they'll update us as we get into the fall, winter, but that's what it looks like so far.
They given you an arrival time on it? Kind of when we're going to start seeing the monsoon typically ends September, so we're already starting to see it kind of, peter out a little bit right now. But June was wet, and it never is, so I don't know. But I'm kind of curious as if you guys are talking about September continuing to be pretty wet into October, or
it's tough to hit because
it's the weather.
Yeah, it's the weather. However, we're kind of hoping for a dry October, November, as we typically get.
Okay.
So we're hoping that moisture keeps coming for now, and then at some point dries out, because really that fall burn window is pretty critical to us getting our prescribed burns in. And when we look at next year's fire season, one of the best things we can do now is to get those prescribed burns done. That way, when those fires do hit, we're in a better position.
Where are you looking to do some burning?
All around town. The Flagstaff Donut is what we call it, from East Side to A1 to Woody, all that country in there, Mountain Air, Coconino. And then we have some other projects down around Blue Ridge Urban Interface, and across the street from, Mormon Lake Basin is another one of the projects.
So and then in the winter months, when we have the snow on the ground, that's when you guys go out and light up the slash piles, the big piles.
You bet. Due to all the thinning activity that occurs throughout the rest of the year, we get those piles all throughout the forest, and we try to clean those up when the snow hits.
We're out of time. Vic, good to see you. Thank you so much for coming in. We'll have you back next spring.
Sounds good.
We'll talk about it all over again. All right, that's today's Countywide. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you again next time.